The British Empire, once the most powerful force in the world, shaped the course of history in ways that still influence modern society. At its height, it controlled nearly a quarter of the world's landmass and population, spreading its language, legal systems, culture, and governance across the globe. Yet, its legacy is deeply complex, marked by extraordinary achievements in trade, industry, and governance, but also by conquest, exploitation, and resistance. This is the story of how a small island nation rose to global dominance, maintained control for centuries, and eventually saw its empire unravel. The origins of the British Empire can be traced back to the late 15th and early 16th centuries, an era of exploration dominated by Spain and Portugal. The British, though late to overseas expansion, were inspired by the wealth generated through colonial ventures. In 1497, the Italian explorer John Cabot, sailing under the English flag, reached the coast of North America. However, unlike the Spanish, who aggressively colonized South America, England took a slower approach. The true beginning of the empire came in the early 17th century, with the establishment of the first permanent colony in North America, Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607. At the same time, Britain set its sights on Asia. The East India Company, established in 1600, was a private trading enterprise that gradually expanded British influence in India. Over the next few centuries, what started as a commercial venture turned into full-scale colonization. By forming alliances, exploiting rivalries, and using military force, the British secured control over Indian trade and territory. In the Caribbean, the British established sugar plantations that became a major source of wealth. However, this wealth was built on the brutal transatlantic slave trade. Britain transported millions of enslaved Africans to its colonies, where they were forced to work in inhumane conditions. The profits from slavery helped fund Britain's industrial development, creating an economic foundation that would support further imperial expansion. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Britain expanded aggressively. Wars with Spain, France, and the Netherlands fueled the empire's growth. The 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, was a decisive conflict that reshaped global power. Britain emerged victorious, securing vast new territories including Canada, India, and the Caribbean islands. This victory established Britain as the dominant world power, but maintaining such a vast empire came at a cost. The first major challenge to British rule came with the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. The 13 colonies in North America, frustrated by British taxation and control, declared independence. The war ended in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris, marking Britain's first major loss. However, Britain quickly turned its focus elsewhere, expanding into Australia, where the first penal colony was established in 1788, and further into Africa and Asia. The 19th century marked the height of the British Empire, driven by industrialization and rapid military expansion. The Industrial Revolution gave Britain a technological edge, allowing for faster communication, improved weaponry, and mass production. Railways, steamships, and telegraphs connected the empire in ways previously unimaginable. The British Navy, the most powerful in the world, ensured control over trade routes and colonies. One of the most significant conquests was India. The British East India Company ruled India through a mix of military force, diplomacy, and economic control. However, British rule was met with growing resistance. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the Sepoy Mutiny, was a turning point. After brutally suppressing the revolt, Britain dissolved the East India Company and took direct control of India in 1858. Queen Victoria was later declared Empress of India in 1877. Meanwhile, in Africa, Britain was heavily involved in the scramble for Africa, a period in the late 19th century when European powers divided the continent among themselves. British rule extended over Egypt, South Africa, Sudan, Kenya, Nigeria, and many other territories. The colonization of Africa was often justified as a civilizing mission, but in reality, it involved exploitation, forced labor, and suppression of indigenous cultures. The British Empire's expansion was not always peaceful. In South Africa, the Anglo-Zulu War, 1879, saw Britain fighting against the powerful Zulu kingdom. Shortly after, the Boer Wars, 1880 to 1881 and 1899 to 1902, erupted as the British sought to control the gold and diamond-rich Boer territories. These wars were brutal, and Britain used concentration camps for the first time, leading to massive civilian casualties. The British Empire thrived but declined in the 20th century. World wars weakened it, and nationalist movements rose. Post-Wateen, financial strain led to decolonization, starting with India in 1947 and ending with Hong Kong in 1997. Its legacy remains, but debates continue. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.